Welcome to the Wallflower. We get to do some talking tonight. Last time I was here, I talked about a form of therapy I was doing called Myofascial Release, also called MFR. And as done by a man named John Barnes, it's a very gentle, non-invasive, but very deep way of releasing our body's entanglements. It's done through the fascia, which is a filmy yet tough structure of connective goo that envelops every muscle, every organ, every part of your body from head to toe. Research is even beginning to show that even the bones are a form of pliably solid fascia. The fluid fascia is constantly forming and reforming itself, changing shape to suit the needs of your body. It's both a passageway and a delivery system for light, energy, nutrients, thought, response, everything. It is crystal clear, and it shimmers from the light that surges through our bodies. This incredible mesh of living matter carries our very existence. It's the highway by which our body communicates within itself. And there are some who say it might even be the seat of the soul. When we injure ourselves, it tightens up to protect the area around the injury. But because it's also this superhighway that carries our emotions, our sensory responses, our decisions, and our thoughts, they often become entrapped in the mesh when you are injured. And the moment the fascia envelops an injury, it catches as well the moment of your pain, your thoughts, your reactions, your feelings, and whatever other snapshots your body may have taken at that moment. And they remain trapped there unless something or someone loosens the entanglements. It's the most multi-dimensional form of therapy I have ever tried, opening up both my mind and my spirit, as well as my body. With each session, more of my pain releases, and more of my own story unfolds, and more of my true self emerges. I have been writing constantly with each new experience, so choosing one today was really a challenge. I chose just the most recent one to give you a taste of where I've been recently. To explain certain references in the story, the therapy is most successful when you allow yourself to release things and not stop or question what it is. Left-brained reasoning only holds you back. What you want to be able to do is release the pain and the tears that came with it, and let go of the memories that were stuck. John Barnes calls the left-brained orderly thinking channel 5, and right-brained emotional responses he calls channel 3. Never figured out why he does it that way, but what I've learned is I go so deeply, I really think I'm in channel 1. And I am also so far past language in my sessions that I don't even speak words. I stammer phonemes, which are the basic building blocks of speech. They come pouring out of me like bubbles in a stream. Because it is so difficult for me to speak more than a word or two at a time in a session, much less complete an entire thought, I usually wait a few days after my therapy, when my left brain starts to kick back in, and write a letter to my therapist about what my experience was. It helps me to process it and them to understand what I was dealing with during the session. This story came out of one of those letters. I'm not going to go into the depths of the therapy today, but I wanted to give you a taste of what it's been. I've had sexual issues and mother issues and birth issues that have dominated my treatments. One of the continual themes of my therapy has been my retreat into a fetal position in so many sessions. A story that has emerged is one that my parents told us when we were younger. When my older sister was 3 years old, she decided she was going to walk to school with the big kids. And that meant, of course, crossing a couple of neighborhood streets. My mother, who could get pretty upset, was most likely frantic looking for her. And knowing how she was when we were kids, I can only imagine how wound up my mother must have been that day. Later that night, she miscarried my twin, or so the story goes. My father insisted it was just a blood clot, but my mother said the doctor confirmed it was indeed a miscarriage. Miscarrying one twin is not really as rare as you might think. While I have never obsessed over it over the course of my life, I noticed certain things that I could not otherwise explain. I've always had a deep loneliness, a sense that someone was missing in my life. Through the years, I tried to fill that void in different ways, some more successful than others, but it has always been there. The concept of a twin has repeated itself in ironic ways during the therapy. 3 of my therapists have either raised or are twins, so it has been an ongoing theme. I also have constantly injured my right leg since childhood, from at least the age of 3, if not earlier. It is so incredibly old. I have begun speculating more recently whether it could have been caused by whatever force that was that happened during the miscarriage. Just speculating. The pain is settled in my big toe, a hot, white, electrical pain that shoots through my leg, out my toe in a bolt of lightning. Over the course of the therapy, the lightning has settled down and broken up like small squalls after a hurricane. I walk better, I stand more balanced, I exercise more comfortably, I've lost weight. And I have released the negative stories that have interfered with my life for way too long. And that is why I really go back. This story involves one of my therapists, whom I shall call Sarah. She is the most present being I have ever met in my entire life. She is here, now, all the time. My deepest experiences to a point of existentialism have been with Sarah. This is a description of only the most recent one. Monday, April 8th, 2019. Dear Sarah, it never stops surprising me how quickly I devolve into whatever channel it is that I go to. 1 minute I am sitting up talking to you, telling you what is going on. The next you take my foot in your hand, you touch my forehead, I melt into the table, and we are off to the races. The stammering seems to come in like the tides, non-existent at first, then full-blown. I go through every emotion I have ever experienced in my lifetime over the course of a session, each time at a pure level. Very quickly, I am the disconnected child dealing with loss, relieved to find a soft breast, a reassuring harbor in the storm. I feel comforted, safe. I go through sounds. You touch my throat and they come gurgling out. This time, it was a harsh, choking sound, and I felt as if I was dying. You said it sounded like a character from Lord of the Rings. I thought it was more like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. After a day or two of thinking about it, I came up with something else, however. About 30 years ago, my grandmother, Bubby, was in her last days of life. She was in a nursing home that she was instrumental in creating. I visited her as often as I could. We were strongly connected. Often I would hold her hand as she slept and meditate with her. It energized her, and she often woke up with a, "What was that?" look in her eyes. So one night I was at home. I had just seen Bubby that afternoon, and she seemed tired but alert. I was in my room doing a sound meditation I had never tried before. I knew she was close to the end and thought I would reach out to her meditatively. It It started out pleasantly enough, sort of musical. Part of the meditation was to experiment with moving the sound all around your vocal cords. Oh! As I did, it got rougher and rougher, sounding more ragged and forced, until it reached the point that I recognized it as a death rattle. It scared the shit out of me. At first, I thought I had caused her death by insinuating its sounds into the universe. I immediately stopped. My heart was beating so fast and so loud I could not sleep that night. So deeply did it touch me. The next day, I found out that Bubby had indeed died the night before. But a good half hour before I started meditating, I hadn't caused her death. I picked her up on the way out. To give you an idea how connected she was to all of us, 2 of my cousins experienced mystical farewells from her as well. So that's what I heard in our last therapy session, Sarah. It struck me. Who died? It scared me. Who died? It made me uneasy. But then we moved to somewhere else and I was making different noises. You worked on my tail, reaching some ancient pain, and that was all I could pay attention to at that point. When the therapy reaches a place that feels like original pain, it is all the more acute. It takes all the faith I have to trust you, to do what you need to do in order to release the obstructions, trusting you will be as gentle as possible. Sometimes I have to resist the reflex to clutch and move away. Instead, release and allow the pain to flow. It can be very difficult sometimes. But then, one minute I am in excruciating pain, and the next, in an instant, it is gone, and I am quiet, totally quiet. You took my hands and intertwined our fingers in a filigree of movement. It brought me to my most basic levels of calm, instantly. I felt presence, connection, grounded. It was play and joy and conversation. Someone there with me, company in the void. I opened my eyes at one point and saw you with your eyes closed, moving with the flow. And then I realized that you were in as deep a trance as I was. Of course. I sank back into it with an opened level of trust, closing my eyes and moving with the flow as well. At some point, I felt you take my left hand by the top, moving it towards your own. You placed my hand, it was cupped and facing up. You placed my hand over yours, hovering about 2 inches above it, holding it like a lid to a jar. You asked me, "Do you know what this is?" I was surprised by the question and looked at you puzzled. I couldn't see anything but the bubble shape between our hands. I couldn't feel it, though I knew you could. I knew something was there by the look in your face. Serious, questioning, curious, like you discovered something you hadn't expected, and now you didn't know what to do with it. You held it reverently. You told me it had come out of me and nestled in your hands, and that you could feel its weight. And then you said something shot out of it, through your hand, jerking it above and behind you. And it left this little blob of something in your hand. My first thought was, it's me, but I didn't know how. I don't remember what you said about the part that left, though my impression was that it was tangled and dark, unraveling as it shot away into the void, ready to be gone. You looked at your hand and you said, what remained felt benign. You asked, what shall we do with it? I didn't know. The look in your eyes was of deep calm, and it is at moments like that when I realize how I trust you, implicitly. I was in an incredibly vulnerable place, at a loss for what was happening, much less what to do with it. So when you said, I know, and moved your hand towards my heart and placed it there, I knew that was the perfect answer. I have thought about all those elements from our session that I can at least remember, and the threads of my own story that I have been piecing together since this therapy began. If, indeed, there was a miscarriage, and if I really lost a twin, and I really experienced that kind of trauma in the womb, I wonder if it's possible that somehow a part of my twin's nervous system, energy, impulses might have been captured by me deep inside the earliest parts of my body, jumping from wherever it nested through my leg in bolts of lightning, trying to get out. I wonder if somehow, with all the releasing I have done, that we have uncovered that captured energy and found a way to let it go. I too have seen and felt other people's energies, but never has it been such a mutual experience of birth and division like this. And then sitting in your hand, maybe it's like the orcas sticking around after being freed from a paralyzing net, showing gratitude to their rescuers. And maybe what happened was that my twin was finally able to leave, cutting that entangled tie at last with a shake and a jolt, leaving me here to live my life, a little round bubble of energy. Thank you.
Show some love for Janet.